Good afternoon, and thank you for joining us. So part of my job is to listen to 20 million earnings calls a quarter, and my takeaway from the first 2 quarters of earnings has been there's no such thing as a retail apocalypse, so can we dispense with that? You know, you have seen incredible numbers by a lot of the biggest retailers out there. The National Retail Federation is expecting a super hot holiday season, 4% growth, and a lot of what we're seeing now, the companies that have been the most successful have really gone all in digital, maybe a couple of years later than they should have. And so there's really a takeaway. You know, the bricks and mortar chains have integrated online and stores very well, finally, after being scared to death. And outside of retail, you know, you're seeing consumer products companies that are using tech to speed up the pipeline of product innovation and understanding better what customers really want. And in the world of payments, of course, everything is changing. So I'm really delighted to have this panel with me so we can dig into this a bit further. So why don't we start with a 30,000-foot question. In your opinion, broadly speaking, without picking on anyone just yet, but because we'll get to that. Are companies that serve consumers, consumer-facing companies, particularly retail and CPG, leveraging tech well at this point? Let's give them the industry report card in September 2018.
Who wants?
Alec, you want?
Okay, so thanks, Jeff. I would say it's a 7 out of 10. And the reason why I say 7 out of 10 is because I think the consumer expectations have changed so much, particularly in the last 5 years, that anyone who's doing 7 out of 10 is doing pretty good job. So I think it's in a good position, but with room to go further to meet customers' expectations.
Yeah, I would just add that there is so much out there and so many opportunities that you know, we've learned through advertising that a lot of what we do online is just really irritating to consumers, and we have to step back and think about how to do it differently. And when we think about all the opportunities to improve the consumer usage experience, you know, we have to think about things that really change their habits or really delight them, not just gadgets and things that they can add.
Phil, I'd say also it's a basic expectation now. I mean, most customers expect to have the same experience online as in the store, and those things are blurring every day. And we are focused so seriously on making sure that there's no deviation between those two.
Yeah, I mean, one of the takeaways of the second quarter earnings season was, you know, a lot of the retailers that reported the best same-store sales in their physical stores happened to also be companies that were reporting the best online sales growth. So Home Depot, Nordstrom, Kohl's, Target, and Walmart, which are incidentally companies that have not closed stores. So they really do feed one another, and I think that corporate America understands this now.
Very set, yep.
So just to go back a little bit to your point, Kathy, how do your companies make sure that customers even want some of the new tech that's proposed to them, and how you present and sell a product, and you know what is, you know, how do you make sure that you're not just chasing shiny objects?
Yeah, so we found that we need to really step back and think about where the consumer's going and where technology's going and what opportunities that opens up to do things differently and where we could be disrupted if we don't do things differently. And that sounds pretty straightforward, but it's actually quite difficult to do when you're in the midst of trying to run a big current business. Then as we do that, our goal is to find sort of leading edge consumers and co-create with them.
Yeah.
So if you stay focused on the tensions that come in consumers' lives as their lives change and as technology opens things up, and then you co-create with them against those tensions, you can really tell when you're solving something in a meaningful way that really, you know, creates passion. You can see it immediately for them. So, you know, one of the things we've been intentional about doing is raising our standard for our products from being better than our competitors to really being irresistibly superior, which people say sounds a little bit like a buzzword, but what we mean by that is it really solves a tension in their lives, and it makes an emotional connection in a way that really delights them. So, you know, particularly with with more tech things, given we're a consumer products company and our products aren't that expensive, it's not totally straightforward. So we started with a connected toothbrush, Oral-B Power Brush. So it's a more expensive item. It's a place where we could add the tech more obviously. And we did find that for the people that used the feature, we drove major habit change on the length of time they brushed, how evenly they brushed across their mouth. And that's really meaningful because oral health is important. So.
And how about in your world, Rajat, with Visa?
So the way we look at this is, you could never know what every consumer in every market needs. And as a platform provider to our clients, the issuing banks and the acquiring banks, we take a dual-pronged approach. The first one is that the platform should cater to the main horizontal needs of all consumers and merchants: security, reliability, compliance, regulations. Do all of that, do it at scale, do it in a way they can always rely on. And then the approach we took in our 60-year history for the first time in the last 5 years is we opened up our network completely. From being a closed application, a closed network, we said we're going to open it up, make everything very standard-based, so our clients or any partner, any developer in the world can access our capabilities and then build applications and capabilities that are very custom to their market or their consumers.
So how has that changed how retailers work with you, this open environment?
So now what our merchants and our issuing and acquiring clients have access to is cross-product functionality that they can pick and choose from to create ensemble products that best meet the requirements of their market. So we have many of our banks now providing applications where a consumer can control every transaction, the amount of payment that they can enable in a card, where the card can work, the kinds of stores the card can work in for themselves or their family members. So they're able to have more control over their cards. They're able to get more alerts when the card is used. But we also have a lot of innovations happening from others that you would not expect. So a bunch of high school seniors in the San Francisco Bay Area built an application for those who are visually impaired that they can now wear as a device, get both geolocation, navigation, object, and people recognition, but also payment and commerce capability using APIs that we're providing in the back end. So it opens up sorts of innovation at the very edges of our network that we could never have dreamed of, but now it democratizes the ability of merchants, of issuing banks, of acquirers, or partners like an Apple, like Google, Samsung, Facebook, anyone to come in and embrace that.
So it's faster. So 3 years ago, I remember, because it made me laugh, I had gotten a press release from Macy's where they announced 17 different tech initiatives. And that was a point, not a very good time in Macy's history. You fast forward to them now, they have a new CEO of a year and a half. They hired Hal Lawton over from eBay, who's now the president, and you're seeing a lot of change and improvement. And so they're very focused. They're not, that really, the 17-point press release felt a bit like they're throwing spaghetti on the wall, and not much stuck to it. So that leads me to the question is, what are some of the classic mistakes retailers and brands make when they're choosing technology? I mean, there was it was very frantic a few years ago when you felt that people were like, we've got to show the board we're doing something. And now there's a lot more, I mean, you guys never fell into that trap. I mean, what are some of the mistakes that you've seen in the industry? Maybe Alec?
I think that the key mistake that you see is people trying to do other people's jobs with technology. It's really the point you're making about sticking to what you do, your platform, around the edges of your platform. So I think if you don't stick to your core business, if you don't start with your core business where you've got big recognition and a lot of inherent skill, then you could actually waste a lot of money very quickly. So in the Walgreens example, they started really with refilling your prescription. It's almost 10 years ago that refill by scan was started. And since that happened, and I think it was a genius move by the team at the time, they've built on the process of refilling your prescription in different ways, all the way through that period of time with a very clear roadmap. So I think if you stick to what you're good at, if you stay in a territory where customers expect you to be good at that territory, and play to your strengths and not try and take on strengths you don't actually naturally have and leap somewhere else, I think that's the strength to have, and the weakness is doing the opposite, I guess.
Yeah, I think that's right. And I think that the other mistake people make is that technology is going to give you all the answers. I think you can use technology to get a lot of data and a lot of learning, or to get some insight out of the data. But the real key is when you put that together with insight that comes from being an expert in your business, from staying really close to the consumer and peeling the onion back a little bit deeper, and it's more qualitative. But those insights are what lead to more breakthrough. So the data helps you, but it doesn't give you all the answers, and that can be a big mistake.
So I'm going to give you a quick chance to show off here. A few months ago, Ted Decker, he's a chief merchant. Yeah, he gave me a tour of a store in Queens, and he was so proud. He showed me this handheld device. He's like, we give this to all our associates. I was like, wow, could you talk about more unsexy tech than that? But it has allowed them to really do sort of Neiman Marcus style clienteling with contractors. Maybe you can talk a bit about that device and the information that you've given associates.
I think it's probably also in line with the question, and that is, you started with a problem first, like who is the customer? And the customer was our associates, right? And building something around their needs as opposed to what we thought they might need is really where a lot of people go wrong, Phil. They generally impose their will upon whoever's going to be using the technology. And in this case, our store associates were asking for the ability to have visibility into inventory and what actually is on its way to a store, what stores close by may have inventory that could fulfill maybe a rather large order for a pro. And all those things were built into, learned over time, starting with a hypothesis, and were built as a way to facilitate them doing work differently. And those are really kind of where a lot of people might start going wrong. They'll get attached to something that they feel like they can impose on someone, or their view of what someone might need, and then they get married to that and they ride it all the way, and they invest a lot of money in those things, and they're afraid to give up in some cases, when in fact what you want to do is learn fast, iterate. You want to be able to get that knowledge and input quickly, and be able to get it back in their hands to give you additional feedback. So that's what I'd say, both along the question and how we came to the device that you saw in the store.
It's directly related to your line of business. A couple of years ago, Neiman Marcus was making a big deal about smart fitting room mirrors, and that didn't catch on. But when they gave their associates a new way of having the black book, where something comes in, you call your favorite customers. So it's a modernized version of it, but that's actually what made Neiman Marcus what it was, right? So instead of chasing all these things that aren't really who you are, you use technology to modernize what you've always done to some degree. So let's talk a bit about artificial intelligence, because we haven't talked about it enough yet at this conference. So Rajat, let's talk about the payments world. How is AI changing innovation in your field?
So AI, it's a pair in science. It's been there for decades. What's really changed now is that AI needs two things to really come into its own. One is it needs a lot of data and access to the information on which it'll get trained, and it needs massive amounts of computational power. And both of those are now available at relatively low cost. So we've actually been a pioneer in a way in using techniques that were the children of this parent AI science for things like risk management. So when a card is dipped or tapped or swiped somewhere, within a few milliseconds, we have to score it. So we use 500 attributes in real time to figure out if the card should be authorized or not as we talk to the issuing banks. So now what we can do with a lot more data, a lot more compute, is we can improve our computational model by knowing where a device is that a cardholder has and knowing if the time over distance works. We can get a lot of information from our sensors in our network to see if an anomaly is taking place either at an account level or at a network level. We can use AI to predict if a problem will happen in our operations, so we can get ahead of it, because we don't get to go down for maintenance ever. We're always on. And all of that learning then goes into deeper predictions, trying to give more information to the consumer, trying to give them customized offers and loyalty programs. So it's just a beginning, I think, of a long journey where AI is just starting to come into its own.
Now, Kathy, let's talk about when we spoke on the phone last week, brainstorming. You talked about Olay and somehow AI is helping P&G.
Yeah, it's pretty exciting. So I'm P&G, and on some of our biggest brands, one of our biggest consumer complaints is I don't know which one I should use. And Olay is the largest skincare brand in the world, yet hasn't been healthy until just very recently. And one of the big tools that got us there was Olay Skin Advisor. And it's this great tool where you can take a selfie of your face, and we have massive knowledge in skin, so we can tell you your skin age, and whether you're older or younger than your actual age, and what the areas where you need improvement. So that's the first step. But then we can also go through all the products we offer and offer the right regimen for you based on your needs. And it's driving a lot of engagement in the brand. It's driving millennials to engage with the brand, which has been huge. It actually told us that young women don't tend to use moisturizers, and we learned that and they don't always use sunscreen, and everybody should use sunscreen.
Yes.
So we learned that those that don't use sunscreen actually do have a higher skin age than those who do. Not surprising, but really impactful for people when they see that come true. And we've now created a product that has great feel. It's very dry, but yet has sunscreen in it as a facial moisturizer, so it's driving a lot of young people to use more facial moisturizer as well. And our brand is, it's been not doing well for a number of years, and it's growing over 10% this year, so we're really excited about that.
So I should go find out my real age?
You should.
A little scary, but so this is a question maybe a bit more for Alec and Matt, but for retailers, what does a successful tech strategy look like these days? I mean, with all due respect to Walgreens, there are a lot of websites from which I can buy toothpaste made by P&G, or a soap or so. As you think about that, what do both of you think a retail tech strategy needs to look like these days?
Please.
You sure? Okay, thanks, Matt. Well, I think we see it as the absolute fusion of the digital and the physical. Our big playing to our strength again, we believe that we've got a good position in the USA. We have well over 9,500 community drugstores, where the human, the pharmacist, or the people on the cash registers, the people taking care of customers, have got a real relationship locally. So the fusion of the physical and digital with that human interface is where we see the opportunity. We lovingly call it the best last mile with the biggest smile. It's not a play in Amazon, I promise you. But what it's talking about is the fact that we've got so much forward distribution of the product that she and he wants. We have solutions and experiences in healthcare, and to some extent, some of the health and beauty categories, skincare being one example, that we can bring to that local community at speed, with good value, and with enough differentiation. We need more differentiation. I think all retailers do need even more product differentiation, to your previous question. And we're just working that angle as hard as we possibly can, using data appropriately, personalizing as much as we can. We have 88 million people in the USA signed up to our loyalty card. So using our scale and using our data appropriately in a very important area of health care and beauty care and personal care and baby care, and playing to that strength in the community environment to become a community care company at heart is what we're trying to do. So it's a big ambition. It's about reimagining the drugstore to become a true community care store. And we have a lot of work to do, but we're making progress. But that's what we're trying to do.
So last December, we announced a pretty significant reinvestment in our company of over $11 billion. And a lot of that is tech-centric, and that requires us to hire a lot of software developers because we develop a lot of the software that powers Home Depot ourselves. And we're going to hire over 1,000 engineers. And so It's really in support of our One Home Depot vision for the company, and it's a 3-year effort that we have going on. Actually, it'll be a little longer in the supply chain area, but it's really, in the supply chain area, it's going to be over $1 billion, and it's really focused on our downstream supply chain. You know, several years ago, we worked on our upstream supply chain. This is really that last mile. And so our strategy is really in support of that vision for our company. And it's really around creating the One Home Depot experience for our customers and our associates. And that's really what we're focused on. And it'll be things that are customer-centric, obviously customer-back. It'll be on things that allow us to really serve them in a way that can differentiate us going forward.
Yeah, and it's worth pointing out Home Depot is the 6th biggest online retailer in the U.S., and who would have thought that a company that sells things that weigh a lot would be an e-commerce leader. So let's open it up for Q&A, and while the ping pong paddles make their way around the room. Oh, is there somebody there? Yeah. Yeah. There you go.
To turn around and find the mic. I'm Evan Krause from OpCo, and we are a communications consultancy that helps companies. One of the things that we've observed a lot with our clients was our big changes in audience segmentation. So I wonder if the panel could talk a little bit about that, and specifically a move away from the classic demographic segmentation and really people buying more in tribes that are linked to causes and brands standing up for causes, and how all that is changing and what you're doing about it. Thanks.
I think that's probably your.
Yeah, that probably does come to me.
In that area.
So, you know, I think we very much have seen that where we can link a cause to our brand equity, it's really quite powerful. So one of the ones for us would be on our Always brand. We have a campaign called Always Like a Girl, which recognizes that girls' confidence drops way down at puberty, and there's, you know, just many, many different ways you can do it. So it's a campaign we've been doing for 4 or 5 years. We tie that to, you know, we're extending that now to keeping girls in school, because during their periods, that's one of the biggest times when girls miss school in the developing parts of the world, and that's very meaningful as a cause to people. So you know, I think our challenge is to find a cause that really connects to the brand equity, so you can bring it to life in a very congruent way versus having it be something off to the side. And I would say each of our brands is working to do that today.
Yeah. The example I would give, and there's always a caution with this as well, it's got to be authentic, it's got to be in a deep, true insight about how customers are changing. So, for example, we do 4 children's charities. The one that we're most proud of is Red Nose Day, which really is the fusion of the community spirit of our people who engage in the Red Nose. The fact that our partner manufacturers really support that during a quiet period in the calendar. And of course, of the 8 charities where the money goes to, and this cause has raised $100 million in 4 years. 4 of these causes are local causes, you know, to Americans. They're not just international as well. So there's a real connection all the way through between the partnerships, the community, and you know, and there's an iconic red nose you stick on your nose and everybody laughs at it. So I think that it's got to be authentic. It's got to be meaningful for all your partners, and it's got to create win-win-win all the way through. Yeah. Then people latch onto it and they want to be part of it. Red Nose Day awareness in the US is now, I think, in excess of 50% from almost 0 4 years ago. And this is all to do with the 250,000 people who represent Walgreens in the community, who tell everyone about what they're doing with it. So I think it's absolutely true, but it's got to be authentic. If it's just done at the side or done for effect, people see through it.
They do.
Yeah. So just following up on that, because not everything, amazingly, is about tech, there are a lot of other changes that are affecting the consumer. You know, the title of this panel has to do with reaching the new consumer, but you know, there's things like urbanization, there's growing concerns about chemicals, you know, the demographic changes of the U.S. So Can we talk a little bit about how all this is changing how you reach customers? Because the Americans and their preoccupations are very different from what they
Yeah,
were
I
a few
mean,
years ago.
certainly the majority of growth is coming from urban centers and will largely in the future. And all sorts of challenges in our business, from lack of space to store products to, as we really dig into, who are the leading edge consumers and what are they most concerned about? New millennial moms want to be sure that their homes are clean, and they are scared to death of the chemicals and cleaning products. And not that they necessarily should be, but that is their reality. So how do we as a company both provide more natural solutions that they can rally around, and also provide more transparency and more information so they can understand what they need to be worried about and what they don't need to be worried about? And we've very much embraced delivering our core performance of our brands in a more natural way, and then all the transparency that comes with it.
Now, Walgreens has a huge private label business. Do you have any thoughts on this?
Yeah, I think it's really incredibly important that you understand the end-to-end supply chain. Go back again to technology, and blockchain is a really important aspect
absolutely.
of that. So I don't think there's any retailer, and we're no exception, who is really fundamentally rethinking their supply chain, using technology to help them, to make sure the product is truly traceable, trackable, authentic, and the origins of it. And we've got work to do, but I don't think there's a single retailer in America who isn't thinking that way and thinking how do they really understand this and use technology. Sorry to do that. Yeah.
No, I interrupted you. I don't think anybody's there yet, but I think it's a really important opportunity.
Okay. So in the 90 seconds we have left, let's talk a bit about, a lot of the tech that we talk about, or that has really led to retail's resurgence, is frankly very unsexy stuff. And supply chain stuff. When you look at the stuff Target is doing, this is all behind the scenes and making sure that the right product is at the right store at the right time, which is boring as hell, but look at everyone's sales and margins. But, are these things that are less flashy a harder sell with the board, with the CEO, with the CTO, CIO, than they might have been just a few years ago, or have CEOs found religion?
I find them to be, the operational components are a very easy sell. It's the things that are less certain as you're trying to create the future with new consumer needs that can be a harder sell because they're a little more risky. I don't know about you.
I tell you, we've been very, I'll call it blessed, in that we have leadership that understand the power that you can use and apply to really facilitate growth in the company. And whether that's powered by technology, or that's powered by people, or that's powered by whatever the resource is, we kind of take it in each of those things in components and say, what can we do to get it done? And that's really kind of how we view it. So
Okay.
I think we've been successful doing that, and hopefully we'll continue to be successful doing that.
Okay, I'm getting the signal that it is time to continue the show. So thank you, Matt and Kathy and Alec and Rajat, for joining me, and thank you for being here and listening to us.